First Sunday Connections is this? Anyone? Okay. So this is where we have speakers from the outside come and share their spiritual journey or just their life journey. Give us some inspiration, some motivation. Just let us know what they've been through, man. To inspire us to keep going, keep doing well. It's non-denominational, so nobody's here trying to convert you guys or anything like that, man. It's about spirituality here. Thank you to the guests for being here. I appreciate you guys coming out here, showing up for us. So Rich Haws is a man who needs absolutely no introduction whatsoever. You guys have been around for a while, you know who he is. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Rich. And Rich used to teach mindfulness. And in his class a while back when I took it the first time, he had us read this book. It's called Horton Hears a Who, right? How many of you guys are familiar with that book? Yeah, you get the gist of it, right? Horton finds a little flower, hears a little voice screaming out for help because the world's about to end. They need to be put somewhere safe. Right? Nobody believes Horton. They all think he's crazy, right? They go against him. But sure enough, in the end, all their voices are raised and they can hear him and they see that he's not, right? And Rich asked us to read that book and apply it to here at Red Barn, right? And at the time, I didn't think much of it. Didn't really know what to say about it. But after thinking about it for a while, and I've been wanting to tell you this for a while, Rich, you, my friend, are Horton, right? The one that stands within, that's that little voice. That's that little voice that nobody else could hear. Nobody else believed in, you know? That's that part of us when we're so far gone, that little part of us that's screaming for help. And the only person that really heard that was Rich Haws for us, man. Even he had to fight to get this place to exist. You know, I can't imagine how many people told him he was crazy for thinking that people like us could change, right? But he heard that voice, man, and he believed in us, and he built us a sanctuary. He built us a home. He put us somewhere safe, and now we're here because of him. And now, with all of our voices being heard everywhere, look at what we have accomplished. Look at what we have done. Look at who we are out there. Look how much support we have from everybody in the community. And that's thanks to Rich. So thank you, Rich. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. We owe you everything. Anyway, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Rich Haws.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Tyson, good job. I'm going to have a hard time. I told him that be careful what you say, because when it's my time and turn to introduce Tyson to speak to you, I'm going to have my opportunity to turn the tables on him. You did a great job. What a great metaphor. You know, as you start thinking about Horton, that picture wasn't there when we taught that class. We were able to find it about a year later. So that painting that we've got from Dr. of Horton the Who is as a result of us, the work that we did here at Red Barn. So thank you. That was a great tie-in with all the work that we've been trying to do here. And it was a lot of work. So I'm excited. I got to tell you, I'm excited to be here. I didn't know I was going to be here till the last couple of days, but it worked out great. I've told Tyson and Russell as we work on this, I'm always happy to fill in with Craig. Craig spoke last time, did a wonderful job. And I'm just going to tell you, so pay attention, because my hope is that each one of you will have a turn being able to do this. Because as we rotate and we'll start doing on more of these connection Sundays, we're trying to get those to where they actually become once every Sunday instead of just the first and third. Because it's very important to me, as we set this up, that the spiritual side that we address in the whole program that we do here at Red Barn. So thank you for being here. Hopefully, I don't know how many Bible thumpers we have here. I actually brought my Bible. We're gonna talk about the Bible tonight. We're gonna spend some time in it, a little different way than maybe what you've done before. But we're gonna spend some time as we talk about the Bible, and we talk about spiritual things. As you know, here at Red Barn, we are non-denominational. So we're not going to get into really some specifics about religion. And Craig did a wonderful job last time talking about the difference about spirituality and religion. Michael, during this last week, sent me a really nice quote on the difference between spirituality and religion. But I'm going to tell you, without any doubt, that spirituality in Red Barn and in my own personal life has been a key part and a cornerstone of what I believe is very, very important for us to be able to have a successful journey while we're here on this life together. Now, I will tell you one thing. I did get a video. I think did you guys have karaoke night? Was that last night? We have got to work on on that just a little bit. So I'm going to ask, who's in charge of music at Red Barn? Who would that be? No, Jared, you raising your hand? So who's closest? Is it Lorna? Isn't she the one that's teaching? That's how, aren't we getting them? So are we gonna have the group and we're gonna sing during graduation coming up here? We'll have another, so who's gonna be in charge of that? Who do we, Michael, do we know who's gonna be in charge of that? Well, I want a student. I'm gonna put this on a I want to put this on a student because I brought something. I brought something specific. Is it on Jared? Will Jared do this for us? Hi, Danny, welcome. Glad to have you here. So Jared, there's a request that I have for you. If you would do this, and it's been changed up, the words just a little bit, but we all sang one. I don't know how many of you were here when we sang the song Fortuosity. Okay, I would love that. If you just humor me, I would love that to be our theme song for graduation this coming year. And if it really works out well, maybe for years in the future, we can trash it if it doesn't work. But I've got it right here. Okay, will you take that? And if you'll give that to Lorna and get the team, whoever's going to be doing that, and whoever's on karaoke piece, we just turn it up a notch. We got to work on a few things. Okay. So we'll have fun. So if you will do that, and our theme song that we could do it while we're all together is Fortuosity. Okay. And for the new guys that don't know what Fortuosity is, Jared, would you like to explain what an SEF and what the Fortuosity piece fits into that story?
So, all right, good evening, family. I'm Jared.
Hi, Jared.
So for me, what an SEF is, it's a serendipitous encounter with Fortuosity. It's having a B moment. It's taking a negative and turning it into a positive, and seeing the bigger picture. You know, in a sense, it's connecting your own dots to see growth in yourself, and it's a beautiful thing when you start to see those things.
Yeah, you've been here a while, haven't you? We use that word Fortuosity and SEFs a lot. It drives my wife Steph crazy. She's still trying to get used to that SEF acronym that we use, but it's one of my favorites. And so if we could do that for our graduation and teach the rest of the community about what Fortuosity is all about, I think that would be a great opportunity. So if you'll do that for me, thank you. Okay, let's talk then today, as I'm here to talk to you. We're going to be talking about, when I left you last, let's see if this is going to work. I've got to turn it on. Well, Ethan's working on it. I know how to do this. There we go. Okay, so tonight, so I'm going to have to walk back and forth just a little bit here with you as we get going. But we're going to talk about the 3 W's. The last time that I was here with you, we'll get a new one. We'll get a new one? Okay. So I'm going to walk back and forth today and do it. But the 3 W's that we worked on, and why I asked that you brought your binder with you today, I'm going to show you the lives and show you some pictures of actually 5 different people. And I want you to be thinking as we do this tonight together, because we're going to be talking about DM. So who knows what a DM is? You can share with us. Yeah. The defining moment. Okay. So the defining moments in our life, we're going to be talking about how we apply then the 3 W's. We're going to remind you again what those are, and you're going to get an opportunity tonight. So be thinking about a defining moment that you would like to be able to write in your journal, and specifically about then our classwork here tonight as we talk about spirituality and we talk about how this fits in your life. Be thinking about a defining moment that is specific to you. Okay. We're going to talk about some defining moments of other people that you're going to know as we go through that, and will hopefully help you, so that what I'm going to be presenting to you tonight is the hope that as you relate to these other people's lives and what they did with it, that you're going to be able to take. So it's like what Jared mentioned, the concept of fortuosity is so important, because all of us have crummy things happen to us in our life. Nobody gets through this life without having something crummy happen to them. That's just life. In fact, if you haven't had that happen to you, just wait, right? And so as we go through that tonight, I'm going to put up some pictures here for you. So here's a fun one. Guess who that, anybody have a venture, a guess of who that is right there? Does it look familiar to you? Right? Maybe you, when you're out in your front yard sometime. But who's that? Oh, me. I showed you a picture of me last time we talked, right? So it probably could have been me. I could, in fact, yeah, there's a lot of things I could tell you, but we won't get into that right now. But this guy here, if I told you just a couple of hints, that he was from German heritage. Dr. Seuss, and what was his real name? Given name? Ted Giesel. Okay, so Ted Giesel. Let's just talk about Ted Giesel for just a minute. Okay, so what were some of the defining moments for Ted Giesel? Help me just a little bit. So we studied a little bit about the history of Ted Giesel. Help me just throw out a couple of things about him that would have been a defining moment for him. Anybody want to share? Yeah. Not getting published. How many times did he have to go back? Remember the number? 27 times. 27 times he had to go back out with his book to try to get. Do you remember the very first book that he got published? What the name of it was? Right. Thanks, Craig. And why was it called Mulberry Street? That's where he grew up. And he grew up, where did he grow up at? In Springfield, Massachusetts. You get us going? Okay. We've got such a great IT department. Is it working? I'll keep pushing buttons, and that's okay. That's good. We're good. We're good. So anyway, so he grew up in Massachusetts, but he had a lot of things happen to him, a lot of defining moments that happened in his life. I just throw it out to you to be thinking about. So he went, and then he ended up, I wrote down some notes as he went through. So 27 different publishers. I wrote down a couple of notes here that he ended up with then, I wrote down here, 51 books that he ended up publishing. Guess how many copies, 51 books of all of them that he sold during his lifetime? 700 million. Isn't that amazing? So he took this experience that he had of going out and everybody saying, no, 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 27 times. And he turned that into a life of success. And, you know, as Tyson already brought up, we've got quotes around him. Why I related so much, I think for Red Barn and for our life and our story here, we all have a lot of Ted Giesel and Dr. Seuss in us. And that's why with the new guys, why you'll see a lot of us referencing Dr. Seuss, is there's a lot of things in his life that I think parallels our life and our experience, not only here at Red Barn, but in life in general. Let me throw up another one here for you. Look familiar? What'd you say, Sully? Michael Jordan. Interesting. So as you look at Michael Jordan, what were some of the defining moments that was in his life? Do you know his story? Yes.
Didn't he get rejected at like his college basketball team?
Yeah, in high school, sophomore high school, he got cut. He got cut. He's off the team. He's just done. He could have given up and just say, okay, I'm through. Right? And then he was actually born, most people don't realize this, but he was actually born in New York in the Bronx. But then he moved, at a very young age, then he moved to North Carolina. Wilmington is where he grew up, in a very small, poor neighborhood. But then he was cut his sophomore year. And then during that period of time, what was going on in the 60s in that area in North Carolina? Yeah, segregation, racial issues. He had a lot of stuff going on in his life. And it wasn't easy for him. And yet you turn around and how many, I wrote down this, how many rings did he end up having? Six rings. Ended up leading the entire NBA for average points scored per game for his career. Any other highlights that I've missed about Michael Jordan fans? MVPs? I think it was 5. Did you get all 6? I'm not going to question you, Sally. Okay. You get all 6? Great. But I look at Michael Jordan, his story. I mean, he's just like Ted Giesel. He could have easily, when he got cut, you know, he could have just thrown in the towel, right? All right. Let's look at another one here. So there's Michael. Here's a guy. I'd offer money, but I'd get in trouble for whoever could guess who this kid is out on, and where this is, I would give. I can't better give you any money, but we'll give you an attaboy. Anybody guess who that is? Steve Young. Oh, there's a great interview with this kid with Steve Young that I would like to play for you sometime. It would be a fun interview. But all I'm going to say is you're close. If that's not enough of a hint. Anybody else? Same team? No, go. More recent. What, who? Purdy, Brock Purdy. Where did he grow up? He grew up, I didn't know this until I did a little more research this weekend, but he's right down there. This will be fun, Michael, for you to know about where Ben Fish and where Kate and those guys are. He grew up in Queen Creek, Arizona. Is where he grew up. And the reason why he got so good is his father, he played flag football rather than playing organized like junior football. He played flag football, and in flag football, I didn't know this, you have to actually release the ball within 7 seconds or the play is blown dead. So one of the reasons why he became so quick on his release was because he grew up playing flag football. But here was a kid right now, playground, doesn't look kind of lonely, doesn't he? And so I don't know if this will play or not, but I'll tell you this. So we know the story about him. How many guys are drafted in the NFL? How many total draftees are there? How many? 262. Wow. How do you know that? He was Mr. Irrelevant, right? He was the very last pick in the NFL in what year? So 2 years ago, in 2022. All right. Do you know who finished the #1 rated quarterback in rating and passing efficiency in the NFL this last year? Brock Purdy. Quite a story. Take from very last all the way to there. Let me see if I can play you. I'm going to try this, see if this comes up on our video. If it not, hopefully you can listen to it. Let's see. Let's see if it's going to work. Oh, it may not work. Let's see.
There's, questions brought up in terms of like, how do you do it? And for myself, it was honestly, you want the truth because this is the truth. And I'm not going to just say, like a worldly answer of, I look in the mirror every night and I tell myself I'm good. It's none of that. It's man, like, this is who God has called me to be. And I've believed that from day one. I believe that Jesus Christ did come down and died for my sins and rose again. And he's living, he's living and sitting beside God on the throne. And so I believe that it's not just some story fairy tale thing. It's real. And it allows me to, stay level-headed and real with life. And I know what my purpose is. And so that all has allowed me to play my game and has allowed me to play football at this level. It just comes about, when guys ask me or they're interested in, what helps you do what you do, then yeah, I share. But, the biggest thing for me is just loving all my teammates, being where they're at, relating with them, being a relatable teammate. And then, if they ask about what I believe in, then I'm all for sharing.
Isn't that cool? So let's stay with Brock Purdy for just a minute before we jump on to another story here. But so Brock, as I've gotten to know him better, what I mentioned there is we'll share some other time the story and interview that goes deeper into his faith and his spiritual basis that he has about his spiritual beliefs. And it really is foundational for him. Steve Young interviews him. And Steve, as you know, is part of our foundation and vice versa, back and forth, part of who we are. And so that spiritual foundation for Brock Purdy really is what makes Brock who he is. And that's what I wanted. And I didn't know that about Brock Purdy. And then you look at where he came from and his story that we talked about being picked last in the NFL draft. And then you hear that, it starts to make sense. A lot of that starts to make sense to me as how strong he doesn't have the strongest arm. Got a quick release because what I was sharing with you about flag football, a lot of pieces that fit together. But really what makes Brock Purdy is his faith and his belief in a higher power for him, that's Jesus Christ. And my challenge would be to each of us is find what that is for us as we get doing our defining moment, writing down, where does spirituality fit for us as we start to write down our defining moments. We're going to get into that in just a minute. Here's one of my very, very favorite stories in the Bible. In the Bible, if you get into the Bible there in Samuel, it talks about the story of David. And the story of David is just in Samuel, as you talk about that whole story, there is a great part when that literally, you remember how tall Goliath was? You all know the story of David and Goliath? I mean, it's pretty famous. It's kind of out there, but how tall was Goliath?
Like 7, real tall. Right?
Yeah, I like real tall. If you believe what you're reading here and how many cubits and the whole thing, he's about 10 feet tall. So he was real tall. He was a big guy. He was bigger than that. You see you got the NCAA going on. Do you get to watch any of that here? Got the Eddie guy that's playing for Purdue, 7'5". So he's actually 2 feet taller than what Eddie is there for Purdue. Any Purdue fans here? Okay. I was an NC State fan, so I'm a little disappointed here today, but there you go. But anyway, so you got this big guy here, and you got then David, that he was the youngest son of his father, who says in here was Jesse. He had 8 brothers who was there, and he was the youngest one, and he was just sent up to take some food and water up to his older brothers. And then they had this thing going on then that was a real racial contest that was going on. And ethnic things going on. You got the Philistines on one side, and you got the Israelites on the other side. And they got this thing going back and forth. And they don't like each other. And they got this big dude over here by the name of Goliath. And he's calling out all these Israelite people and says, all I need is one guy to come fight me. And nobody's willing to step up to the plate and do that. And so David shows up on the scene, and he shows up with just taking some food and water to his brothers, and he's giving his brothers a bad time, saying, how come you guys aren't willing to take this dude on? And they said, he's way too big for us. David says, I'll take him on. And so you know the rest of the story. He goes on, and you got Goliath with all this gear on and everything else. They try to saddle up, David with a bunch of gear on and putting some armor on. And he said, that's too heavy for me. I don't need that. He says, I've got faith that God will look out for me. And so it's a little bit of the story of Brock Purdy in a different kind of way. He goes and he gets a slingshot, but he's been out just trying to keep the wolves away from the sheep that he's been out tending for his dad. Puts that in his slingshot, hits Goliath right between the eyes, and boom, he goes down. Now the rest of the story gets a little weird, and that's the part that I wanted to share for you. Because as you go all the way through reading Samuel and you get in all of this, there's some great quotes in here about what happens to David. Because David's life becomes a real mixture of conflict and a real mixture of, basically, he screwed up a lot, kind of like all of us. That's why I love the story of David, because I can connect and relate with David. He made a lot of mistakes. He really screwed up. There's a song that I don't know if this is going to play or not, but I'm going to have, let's see where this will go. This guy that wrote this song, you may even know him. Oh, I don't think he's going to come up. So I'm going to have to play him for you. I'll play it in here. So this guy right here, his name, he goes around and sings. He's a Christian singer that.
King David in the Bible. Any of you guys ever read about King David in the Bible? Dude was a mess.
What a mess King David was. Listen to this.
He's the king of Israel, and one day he just saw this chick on the roof. He decided to get with this chick, right? And then that chick's husband, he sent him off to war to die, and he stole his wife.
Can you hear that?
That's King David, and that's messed up. Everyone's like, oh, King David, he's amazing. His own son was trying to kill him, hated him.
It's Absalom. He has a son.
That stuff's in the Bible. What else is in the Bible? The Father says over King David, he says, this is a man after my own heart. And I was always like, what does that mean? Like, King David was a screw up by all accounts, and yet God said over him, "This is a man after my own heart." I think the thing about King David that set him apart was when he messed up, he didn't run away from God, right? The thing about David is he ran to God when he messed up because he knew that God liked him. He knew God loved him. He didn't run away in shame. He didn't hide. He didn't freak out. He just ran to God. Say, "Here I am. I messed up again." And God was like, "Yeah, I knew you would. I get it." And he'd forgive him. I think that's why God said, "That's a man after my own heart." He's not afraid to come to me when he messes up. Said I grew up in church, and one of my heroes is this dude, King David. And what's that mean? Like,
So the takeaway there, if you could hear it, okay, we tried to get it so where we could play it on the video for you. But the bottom line is, we're just going to review it, and why it is so important to share with you tonight is that King David made a lot of mistakes. He called him a screw up. We're all called different things at different times. I don't think David was necessarily a screw up, but he made a lot of mistakes. But the key part for David was when he did mess up, rather than just running and hiding and run away from the problem, he actually involved God in his solution. There are so many times as you read Samuel and you go through the Bible through there that it talks about his relationship with God and what he did to be able to try to have God on his team and have God on his side. And he was constantly thinking, what can I do to have God on my team and on my side and make it right with him, so that when I see him, when I'm there with him again, we're together on this stuff. And that's the story that I love about David, is that even though what people forget a lot about is at the end of David's life, he did make a lot of mistakes. He had his own son Absalom try to kill him. He had the king, he had a lot of other people that he had a lot of conflict with. But at the end of the day, he didn't run away from God. He ran towards God. That's the message that I would leave with you as we talk about David and his story right there. And he had a lot of defining moments, but the key for him was God still was a central part of all of his doings and comings and goings. Okay. All right, let's go to when I spoke to you last. We told the story about Dusty. And for the new ones, there's a couple of them haven't heard this story, so I'll just kind of quickly summarize for you again. The day that Dustin had passed away, we came back down to the barn later that day, and we found this really blob that was sitting there in the middle of the field, over here where the fountain is. And there was this kind of lifeless alpaca that had been born. And after cleaning him up and kind of getting him warmed back up again, he was alive and he made it. You still have him over here. He's one of the alpacas that you have. It's a constant reminder to us of that experience that when we went through. And one of the DMs for us and for our family was obviously losing Dustin when Dustin passed away. And how we react to that and some of the stories I wanted to share with you a little bit of the 3 W's of how I dealt with it. And then as you have questions, we'll leave a little bit of time at the end of this as to how those 3 W's maybe would work in your story of your DMs as we go through that. So let me just kind of spend just a little bit of time with you on that. So let's just talk about the 3 W keys that we talk about when we mentioned. The first one is, we said, why was this given? And as we've driven through or drawn the line through 2, 4, why are our defining moments given for us? What are they for? And I think if we look at it from that perspective, rather than being the victim and saying, look what happened to me and looking to blame somebody else for that, if you'll take a more positive approach towards the question, why did this happen for me? And as I look at that event for Dustin and what happened to our family, why did that happen for me? And I can only speak for me. And that's all you're going to be speaking for. As you start writing this down, you're just talking about you. It's not about the rest of your family. It's not about somebody else, one of your other brothers here in the program. This is about you. So why did this defining moment that you've written down, or you're going to be working on this next week, and I'm getting the exercise of learning how to deal with defining moments in your life, What does that look like for you? So for me, so why was this given for me? I was at a time when we were running pretty good. There were a lot of good things happening to us. And I believe that it was an opportunity for me to step back. And it was a great test of my own personal faith, a great test of my belief system, of where I would take and would do that. And I don't think that it was specifically done just to test me, but I look at it, the opportunity that it gave for me to be able to say, what am I going to do with this? It was pretty tragic. It was, I mean, that was really one of the hardest things that I have ever had to deal with in my life, is when I had two sheriffs walk into my driveway at 6 o'clock in the morning and come up and tell me that my son had passed away. And for us to deal with that as a family, and how do we deal with it with the family? All those are things. Why was it for me? For me, it was because it was a time in my life that I believe I needed to be able to have that kind of opportunity to really see how I would react and what would this do for me and what would it do for our family. That was number one. Okay, let's keep going. The other one, the other W was what? What am I to learn from this? So the experience that we went through with Dustin and really my story with addiction goes way, way, way back. As I've shared with you before, the what am I to learn from this? Before addiction, when I was playing basketball, it was all around me because opioids and the whole thing of getting us back out onto the floor and playing basketball was the most important thing in the world. And they would throw pain meds at us left and right just to get us back out on the floor. We didn't understand back in the 70s, 50 years ago, we didn't understand the effect that opioids and pain pills really had long term. And about 80% of my teammates now have all passed away related to some form of addiction or another. I was one of the fortunate few that I couldn't take even a Loratab without getting sick to my stomach. And so I lived on ice baths. I know some of you guys like doing that now. I think you're crazy for doing that. But I would live in the ice baths and I would live on ibuprofen. That's all I could do. And I had 2 sprained ankles my junior and senior year. And it was a lot of work, but I didn't do the opioids. But not because I was some hero, it just didn't work for me. Those that it did, most of them have all passed away. So what I'd like to learn from this, the addiction side that we were dealing with Dustin and even with our own family was starting to come to the surface. And so for me, what I've learned from all of this is the addiction part of the world that we live in and around here right now is so real. And it takes on a lot of different forms, but I do know, because of what I've been through, how impactful that is to not only the individual, but to the entire family. I know that. And that's what I've learned from all this. That's the what. The other W is who. Who am I to connect with as a result? And that's the coolest part of all of this. It's you guys. I really believe that. I really believe in my soul that it's you guys. It's the world that now I get to be part of with you. And when we first started this and what it's done with Michael and our family to share and be part of this with you is really a really cool thing for us. And just know from our heart, we love you guys. We really can connect with the world of addiction and where you have been because we've been through it. And the who that we connect with and who am I to go with this is a story that I'll take to my grave. And so Red Barn, as Tyson mentioned right at the very beginning, when we wanted to build Red Barn Farms, there were a lot of people out there that said, we don't need another, they call it a drug house in Farmington. We had to fight that. And because of what you've done now, and you're part of a really elite group that I would call it out there right now, I can't tell you how many times that when I go out on the golf course with friends, or I go over to a meeting someplace and they know of our association with Red Barn, the reputation that you've helped create at Red Barn Farms and Red Barn Academy, and soon to be Red Barn Chicken, right? Instead of Sticky Bird. And that is amazing. You've done an amazing job and you carry yourself so well. So thank you for that, because you're representing now Dustin. You're representing your brothers here. You're representing all the hard work that we had to put into to be able to get Red Barn where it's at today. You're part of that. And you're part of a really cool, successful story of where this is headed. And some really, when we first started here, I mean, we really didn't know what we were doing. Very much. And we've shared with you before, we've been on a journey. I mean, Michael went back to school. We traveled all over the world to look at other programs similar to ours. So we've done our homework. But it's taken us to this point to get to where we're at. And we're pretty solid right now. And it's because of you guys and what we're doing here right now. So carry that back. When you have that Red Barn shirt on and you wear that Red Barn label when you're out in the community, I'm going to tell you, you have really no idea how many people are watching you. Not only the community, but I can tell you, because of the experience that I've been through, the rest of your family and those that love you and that have been through what you've been going through are there for you too. And they're cheering for you. And they're your biggest cheerleaders that you've got out there right now. So just know that. And the final closing part of that is the message today is that if you'll learn to find a way to have spirituality, find a way to run towards God in your story, find a way to include him in your story, find a way that that is part of how you tell your story and where you're going, and the who am I to connect with? One of them I'm going to tell you is him. And that's where I'll leave it with you. Okay. Questions with you guys? I see you writing. That's a good thing. As you get working on your own DM that you're working on, because every day, literally, you could write down at the end of every day a DM, right? We all have some type of defining moment every single day. Some of them are more traumatic than others, but as you learn the practice of learning how to do the 3 W's towards your DM, you'll get better at it as you go along. Any questions?
So, can you explain the difference between the SEF and the defining moment?
Yeah, so the SEF, that's a great question, Sally. So the SEF is an acronym of the entire, it's the defining moment and an SEF all fit together nicely, but the defining moment is, or SEF is the culmination is the word I'm looking for. The culmination of the defining moment with the 3 W's all packed in together. That's what an SEF is. Is when you have an SEF and you've actually been able to find the 3 W's within your defining moment. To me, that's what an SEF really is. And those SEF moments, when you finally can figure out those 3 W's in your defining moment, and you can feel at peace in your own heart with it, and who you've connected, then that becomes that SEF for you. Does that help? Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
When something it's easy to find like a positive defining moment to get to those 3 things, but when something adverse happens, like adverse is like what happened with Dustin, like how did you find a positive in that moment? Like, I don't know, like, it's so hard in the moment, like to not wallow or not sit there and not do something about it. Cause that's what I've done in my past. I've sat there and I've sat there way too long in the negative side. How did you get on board with finding this?
Great question, because I didn't. That's a great question, because I didn't. I mean, that was so traumatic at the moment, and with what happened, it was just, I had to sit in it for a while. And that's why what we do here, and frankly, that's why it's a 2+ year program, because all of our defining moments and it's like I've used the phrase here with you before, there's 2 types of people in the world, right? Those in recovery and those that should be, because we're all dealing with something. So it's a great question, Nick. It took a long time. Even now, when I go back, which now it's 12 years ago, that happened. And even when I think about it now, the emotion that it stirs up and where I sometimes mentally go isn't a good place. And so the way I have to deal with that is through like what we do in our mindfulness class. We learn how to meditate. We learn how to sit in it. We learn how to do the very tools that you get that we practice on here are tools that you get to be able to learn how to deal with your own defining moments And the last part that we just closed on here today, it would encourage you to find a way that God's part of that for you. Is to try to do it by yourself. I'm just gonna tell you, it's next to impossible. So. All right. Anybody else before we wrap up? The last shot at me for a while. All right, thank you. Thanks for letting me do with it.
I want to say thank you, Rich, for taking the time to come out and talk to us. I really appreciate it. And I want you guys to understand how powerful this lesson is. And this isn't just something that you learn and you just don't even think about. Like, you need to use this every single day. This is one of the most powerful things I've ever learned since I've been here. You know, I used to think,
That might be me. Let me turn this off.
I used to think all the time, why did this happen to me? What is going on? I think the universe is conspiring against me. God doesn't love me. I tell myself all these things. I play the victim, right? But the truth is, man, anytime anything happens to you, it happens for a reason. So now I'm like, okay, why is this happening? Because there's a lesson to be learned. So what is a lesson? See it for what it is, man. As long as you learn from everything, that's why we talk about failing forward. It's never a failure unless you quit. Every failure that you go through, every setback that you experience is to teach you a lesson. And so just keep that in mind. And that's exactly what this is here. And every time you go through something, you're able to connect with more people. You're able to share with them, help them, spread the word, spread the message, right? So remember this and practice this every day. You'll be better, man, for it. But once again, thank you, Rich. Let's give him another round of applause. And let's get a picture.